All right, hello everyone. This is MaxEB Breakout Room 7. This meeting is a little bit just kind of here for spillover and really anything that we want to talk about. It's made a lot of decisions in the last meeting. But yeah, we'll see where this goes and if anything useful comes out. So the first thing is I guess on the combined spec and DevNet Zero. Have we made a decision yet on when DevNet Zero launches? Does anyone know?
No concrete plans. It all depends on the client implementations of the different EIPs. But I think we concluded that we would not include MaxEB into .NET Zero.
Right. It's just that we don't.
Because it might be on V1 or V2. But as the spec wasn't super clear, I think the initial idea was let's just leave MaxEB out and have everything else in. And then in the future DevNet, we can have MaxEB in too.
I
Interesting.
find that a bit interesting because we put all of the 7251 stuff into the Alpha Zero spec, which was supposed to be the DevNet Zero.
Same.
So I know Techo at least has been working towards, well, we're not going to make it, I don't think, because it's only another couple of days, but we've been working towards delivering all of it in DevNet Zero.
Wait, another couple of days. What do you mean? You mean by
Well, we miss Thursday. So really we've got tomorrow, Friday, Monday. And that's the 29th. If they go live on the 29th, then there's no chance for us.
There's no way Lighthouse should make it by the 29th. Not possible.
Yeah.
So
But it was supposed to be on the Alpha Zero spec, I think.
Okay, so we do want to have MaxEB included too, because then it all depends on the clients really. We were just like that was the original idea. I think 2 weeks ago, or maybe even 3 weeks ago, we proposed that maybe we can exclude MaxEB from DevNet Zero.
Would have been my preference. But last week they were talking about that Alpha Zero being DevNet Zero, so it does sound like there's a bit of confusion between us.
yeah, like I had heard vaguely that people threw out the date of the 29th. And this was 2 weeks ago or something. Sean mentioned it to me, and I said immediately, like, there's no way. 29th is way too fast. But I mean, I guess maybe it could have been if we had excluded MaxEB, but I think at this point, most people are targeting the DevNet Zero specs. It's the only coherent spec that we have, and they're targeting the interop in Kenya.
Okay. That's more realistic, I think.
Yeah.
Then we should try to aim at maybe 6th of May.
I mean, we'll just aim to get it as fast as we can, but I don't know. I don't know how fast that will be. In terms of like the 6th of May is still very fast. We were definitely gonna leave out consolidations. But I mean, at least maybe at some point post-launch of the DevNet, someone can hack together something to stuff a consolidation in a block proposal if they want, and then test all of our code around that. But that can be done after the DevNet. That doesn't have to like be there by launch.
I mean, we could equally just, put deposits in for larger validators. We don't even need consolidations.
Yeah, we can create any size of deposits.
So like, it's a matter of, it's not that you couldn't create larger validators, it's just a matter of like testing the consolidation code path. And all the machinery for a consolidation is in the DevNet Zero spec, or what we call the DevNet Zero spec. It just doesn't have the like, it's not execution layer initiated, and then there's no gossip. Because that would just be extra work that we'd have to rip out. So like, if someone sticks one in a block, it'll go through the consolidation queue and everything. It will consolidate 2 validators. We just have to get a way of getting it in a block. And then we can do that by just having one of the clients like do an operation pool if we want, or some kind of just way where you can send it directly to your proposer, and then once your proposer gets a block, they can put it in. But okay, that's interesting.
One more quick question. So
Sure.
would it be possible to exclude still MaxEB from DevNet 0 in potentially an earlier DevNet 0 launch? Or is that already out of the question for most clients?
I mean, I don't even know that the other parts of the spec maybe could be targeted, but I mean, it would. I mean, what spec would we even be targeting? You know, when we're trying to build it.
I think
Yeah.
from a techie perspective, we're going to be up against it for attestations as well. So I don't think excluding MaxEB would help us get to the DevNet at this point in time. We just need to build them out. And having a concrete spec has saved us a ton of time anyway, like having that alpha 0, because we're not also having to look at half a dozen pull requests as well. So I think it's the right place to be as a starting point, but I don't think we're going to make the 29th for sure, and probably the 6th would be optimistic. But we will push for it.
And then, okay. So that's a bit on fork timing, I guess. So in terms of the combined spec that we have, I mean, we've got a couple of pull requests out, outstanding. So there's the handle top ups to existing validators. Are we ready to merge this? It kind of looks like it's ready-ish.
I think it's ready. I mean, I don't think anyone really has looked at it much, other than me. Maybe I don't know. I think maybe Shaway and Mikhail had taken a little bit of a look, but yeah, it's not that urgent though. I don't know. I can kind of sit there if, yeah, I don't know. I think it is ready as is, but at least that's yeah, we agreed with Mikhail.
Another set of eyes on it or something, just to
Yeah, that would help.
sure. Okay, so that's where that is. If we just get a little bit, but it's also not urgent. Okay, and then there's the stricter bound for consolidation queue that PR is out. Doesn't look like. Maybe there's still some open questions. And then I had one on reclaiming the epochs lost the activation queue, or at the fork epoch. Lion asked me if it was worth the complexity. Like I could break it down, like it's one loop in the basically the fork transition that we'd have to execute once. So like I don't think the loop is particularly difficult to implement. Where complexity could come in is like if we have to test this or write up test cases for this, that might be a little tricky. So yeah, it's just like we lose basically 4 epochs worth of activations at the fork by my math. And this loop that we could run could like get those activations back. And that's if you know, the activation queue was like crammed full at the time of the fork, then we would basically push. Yeah. So it basically like the question is it worth the loop and possibly developing the tests at some point? Like this obviously wouldn't be in the first version. Or do we just go move forward? But yeah, if anyone has an opinion on that, go ahead and comment on that, PR.
I would probably just let it be, just because I feel like we already have enough validators. Like, I don't really care if we lose too many, like a few epochs of activations. But yeah, I don't know. I guess
Yeah, sure.
yeah. I mean, if it's not much complexity, it's not obviously it's not such a big deal. It's not like the reason it should be. Oh, let's just find a weird way to lose 4 epochs of activation. But I guess just the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think it's big damage if we lose 4 epochs of activations.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. And then I guess the next thing we have on the agenda is parameterizing target operations and smart contracts. Should have asked Matt about this. I don't know how much progress he's made on that, but we do have he does have the EIP that we were talking about earlier. It's EIP's in the last call, EIP 7685, general purpose execution layer requests. So it's just like kind of what we talked about. This doesn't really affect consensus layer much, but it's just basically making any kind of operation that goes to the consensus layer from the execution layer be like, it's like generalizing that, like each different operation will have its own contract, its own queue, but it all gets stuffed in the same field inside the execution block, with just a byte at the beginning, indicating which type of request it is. But yeah, I don't know if he's made progress in the meantime on, we were kind of talking about like, you know, there will be parameters on like the target number of operations per block and the maximum number of operations per block for each different operation. And it would be ideal if we could make those parameters be kind of not in the contract itself, so we don't have to do a really irregular state transition if we want to change them. But I'm not sure if he's made progress on that. Yeah, beyond that, I'm not sure if anyone has anything else they want to raise. This is kind of a stopgap meeting to see if we'd have anything to discuss at this time, so. Otherwise, it can be quite short, but. Anyone?
It does sound like getting a better idea of the date, the DevNet 0 would be good. I don't know. Is it an EL call or a CL call this week? Whether we can
EL
get an
call.
idea of when that's likely.
That's an EL call. But we could raise it on the EL call. And yeah, like, I don't know, I'd asked yesterday and yeah, no one in Lighthouse, you're right, like no one in Lighthouse knew what the answer was.
The only thing I'd seen was when Shoei was cutting the Alpha 0 patch, and there was a markdown file there with I think it was a HackMD with floating the idea of the 20 being targeted for the 29th, which I kind of scoffed at initially.
I
just
think the
in terms
29th
of
was
getting it done.
Yeah, the 29th was just an initial idea. I think Matt proposed that from Geth.
Okay.
Because I think the EL side it's a little bit lighter, so they should be ready by the 29th, hopefully. But yeah,
Okay.
the CL side is significantly heavier for DevNet 0 at least.
Yeah.
And most of our work actually is DevNet 0, like the rest would be.
Yeah, the data structure changes are pretty significant. Like we're changing states, out of stations, blocks. It's a fair chunk.
Epoch processing is big for us because we have a single pass epoch processing algorithm that we just merged, so that will take a while.
Yeah.
Could we get
Yeah,
an
we
update
haven't even.
from other client
go on.
teams, how they are doing in preparation for DevNet 0?
James, how's Prism going?
We're trying to get the spec tests to pass, but we won't be able to start on 6110 until Wednesday. That's when KC frees up. It's our branches are sort of a mess trying to get the MaxEB and the exits mixed together because I started on the exits and then realized that it's all mixed up with the MaxEB stuff. So our branches are sort of all over the place. I'm not feeling too confident that we'll get it done by Monday, but our Prism team is sort of connecting today to see our path forward.
Yeah, so the new timeline would be 6th of May, not next week, Monday. So does that
Yeah,
sound more
that's
reasonable?
sounding
Okay.
better. But I'll need to meet with my team later on this morning to figure out if we'll be able to make that.
Yeah. So the idea would be to have something ready by the week after that, for sure, by like the 13th, because otherwise we're just going to be debugging a bunch there in person, which is, I mean, it's reasonable also, but yeah.
So I have a question. Do you guys know, like, client request these changes are in the DevNet 1 or DevNet 0 or 1?
Which changes?
The generic request format from EL to CL that like client has proposed.
I'm not sure whether that's going to be in DevNet 0. It doesn't seem like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like EL's really settled on something for DevNet 0 yet. I don't know where that information would be if it is.
They also have
basically-
they also froze it. So they had a PR that was
basically
frozen.
there is an issue over there in my opinion that, for example, in the deposits they have used RLP, and I don't think basically they really need to use RLP. They can just just serialize the bytes one after another, so just pack it because everything looks fixed size. So has this discussion happened somewhere where how basically each of the EIP's requests are to be serialized into a OPEC bytes? Has this happened somewhere already?
Like we have, there's an EIP for it. But I don't know if people have.
Right. For MaxEB, it's like separate consolidations are separate, so that will be dealt separately. But I was checking 6110 EIP and it was like, okay, I was just surprised to see that, okay, it is already modified, but since it's not part of 0, then maybe it could be discussed later on as well.
Yeah, I don't know, like we said, we don't know where the EL is on this, but would it be? I mean, if we end up pushing the DevNet back because the CL is going to be a lot slower, then is it worth for the EL side to try to get EIP 7685 into dev.0.
Justin, would you by any chance know the site?
So yeah, it's a similar situation over here. 6110 has been implemented for a while, but we need to refactor it for 7685. We're planning on doing that and getting that done for DevNet 0 because 7685 is included in the oh, it's not. My mistake. Yeah, that's kind of wonky. Because 7002 is going to need to be refactored to use that as well. I don't know. I would say push it because 7685 is not terribly hard to implement and the refactoring isn't super difficult. So like I think it's worth doing it the way it's going to be done from the start. Not an opinion I strongly hold. I could be talked out of it. We should also check with Matt Garnett to make sure that that's finalized. I did some work with him on 7685 last week, and it seems kind of finalized. But yeah, I would want to ship DevNet 0 on that. Paul, were you agreeing with me or something else?
No, I think it's a good argument you make. If the closer we are to having everything functional, the better. So if we've got an extra week and it's not a big job, then it's probably worth shooting for that.
Yeah. Tell you what, I'll throw it on the agenda for ACDE this week. Let's see what other teams
That sounds
think.
awesome.
Harry's in here.
So for Lodestar 6110 and exits are merged in, and I think NC can update on MaxEB, but attestation thing we can aim to push in, and for that generic request format, I think we should just leave it out of DevNet 0 scope for now.
One other
Right,
quick.
and then
Yeah,
go ahead.
just to circle back to what we said, 6110 has been updated to depend on 7685, specifically in the EIP.
Yes, that's why I raised initially the question that I was surprised to see already updated and with RLP over there. And I was like, okay, where did this discussion actually happen?
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, Gajendra. Thank you.
So do we want to include 7685 now or no?
No, I think we should not include because
Should not. Okay.
we don't even know that, RLP is the right format for it.
Well, but okay, so if you don't include it, then you're saying at least exits. Wait, so we've got deposits and exits, right? So you're saying that those two would be separate fields within the block, at least in the first iteration?
So these are still going to be separate fields, even with 7685. That is the way it is conceived, that only requests are formatted in opaque array, but each EIP can choose how they will go. And for now, for example, if you reach 610, those opaque bytes will still come in EL exits, I think. So the field will be populated, but it will not be sort of a JSON kind of a thing, but it won't be an object kind of a thing, but it will be opaque bytes that we'll need to deserialize at when we parse the response from EL.
I kind of didn't really like, well, so I know he's got a PR to the engine API where I think the initial plan was that the objects be passed as separate to the CO, and I kind of said that would probably be best just because it's easier to deserialize when you know the type, but what, like, I was just asking about in the block, and it sounded like you said that even under 7685, they would be separate fields in the block. I thought 7685 targeted that they would all be in the same array in the same field in the block.
Yeah, if you look at EIP 7, yeah, that's 768. What is that? 76?
7685.
Right. Because I remember that there was a comment over there where Relay mentioned that whether this has to be in the separate field or this is going to be in the same field, and the comment, and basically there was a response that said that ETIP can decide how they want to.
Oh, the beacon, yeah. I thought isn't there still like a field in the execution block for these things, or does it just not touch the execution block at all?
I think let me look at EIP 6110 since it has already been updated.
Okay.
Is the consensus spec test is meant for the updated 6110 or for the legacy 6110?
Consensus spec is agnostic towards this.
Okay.
At least that's my understanding. So it sounds more like people are targeting mid-April for this DevNet, or like the 6th to like the 10th.
April, May.
May, you mean?
So
Yeah,
six-
May. Yeah, that's like we're past mid-April, but yeah. May.
6110, for example, says that execution payload is extended with the new deposit receipts field. And then there is this deposit request RLP that has been defined as well. So, I mean, as per my understanding, it's that opaque still goes, opaque byte still goes in this deposit receipts.
So that basically that means that exits and deposits are separate fields within the execution block, is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's my reading of it. But actually, now basically looking at it, I don't even sort of, get what is the advantage that we are getting out of having opaque bytes. I mean, this is sort of my confusion now.
In types. Or you mean the advantage from 7685 or the advantage? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by opaque bytes.
Yeah, so 7685 is that's what it is doing, that every request is now just a type followed by opaque bytes, right? So you can interpret it you can sort of decode it. But I am now sort of confused that what is the benefit that we are going to get out of it.
Yeah, like I thought the benefit was just only having one field to modify in the execution block. Or like basically one field, so like. My understanding was the advantage was that. If everything gets put into one field. And like say later. One of the request types is deprecated, then we don't have this field in the block forever. That's just like an empty array because it like other requests use that field. That was my understanding, but could be wrong.
No, they're typed. So you would just have an array of all the other requests and yours would be missing.
Right, so basically.
I mean, that's the advantage is like versus not having, like having them all in the same field with a byte for the type allows us to use that field for all the requests, and then we would never have this tech debt of having an empty array if one of the requests gets deprecated because the other requests still go in that array. Right? That was my understanding. Unless I'm just wrong.
No, that's my understanding as well.
Right, but it seems like, for example, when I look at 6110, it says that this, I presume that it has been updated because it now mentions 7685 and mentions deposit request RLP, which is basically encoding of the deposits receipts. And then it still mentions that the new field is extended over there. And from what I understand, that it in the PR, they in the PR for 7685, there was a comment regarding that, in which basically this question was asked whether they are going to come in the same field or they will be in their own fields. And it was sort of mentioned that the individual EIPs could decide themselves. So if they are going to come in their separate fields, then I basically don't see the usefulness of 7685.
Is it possible just that 6110 hasn't been updated yet?
So you can see that 7685 has been referred in 6110. Maybe it has not been fully updated. It could be that maybe it's not consistent as of now.
I worked with Matt on it. We updated it last week late, Thursday or Friday. I'm trying to find the part that you're referring to, actually.
Go ahead, Paul.
Just wondering whether the right place for this conversation would be the ACDE, just because, I mean, I don't feel like I can really contribute a lot to the discussion itself. So maybe on the EL call would be a good place to discuss this after all.
I mean, that's a fair point, but I also, what else do we have to, do we have other stuff to discuss on this call? Because it might be worth just having a pre-discussion to prepare for that call here, but.
Yeah, you guys are welcome to. It's just that I really can't offer any insights into this specific thing. And I think that the people that could are more likely to be on the EL call other than Justin. Happy to let the conversation go. I think it's going to end up continuing in an EL call.
For sure, yeah. No, it's just, I mean, it's good to take the time, I guess, to get on the same page for at least some of the people going into the call.
So I think the main thing that we basically want to decide over here is that 7685 changes should not be part of definite zero, because there is some confusion and there could be some clarity that might be coming in. And
yeah, well, but like we said, you guys, like, if DevNet, it depends on what you mean by DevNet zero. Well, number one, we need to clarify when we should get like way more people on the same page about when DevNet zero is. And then number two, it's on at least Teku, Prism, and Lighthouse are nowhere near being ready by the 29th, it sounds like. Because there was some idea that it might be the 29th, but we were more targeting mid-May, or at least, yeah, mid-early May. And then, so like, we're gonna take till mid-May anyway, so like, I think that might be, is that sufficient time, you think, for you guys to get 7685 in for DevNet zero? Because if it is, then you could still have it in DevNet zero.
I feel like any changes now are just gonna add more time, and just wanted to make sure that people know that the interop is in about 2.5 weeks from now. So I think making as few changes, even if we sacrifice some sort of the implementation work later on. But if we're able to have a DevNet at interop, that'll be way more valuable than not having one.
Mark, can you let Matt in, please?
Oh, did I not? Wait. I don't see a notification. Who's trying to get, can you try to get in again? I'm sorry, I didn't see any notification. Is Matt trying to join?
Yep.
Huh. One new message, okay. I'll tell him to. I don't see any notification about. Oh, there it is. Hey. I mean,
Hello.
hey, we were just trying to figure out the status of 7685 in general, like, and how much like where that stands and how and whether or not it could be ready for DevNet 0, which it sounds like the consensus clients will not be, like, we're not going to be ready until at least mid-May. And so if how long it would take to get 6110 and those things are up to date with 7685 and
They're all up to date already with 7685. So I thought that on the call last week we sort of agreed that we would do the requests, at least like on the EL side, because both of the EL team like this is, I don't think anything needs to change on the CL.
right.
And
Yeah, it's
yeah. So all the specs are updated to support 7685.
So Kaijinder was just looking at it and it looked like the way the specs are currently written that there's still, like, the different requests are still in separate fields in the block.
They're only in separate fields in the execution payload. Which is what people seem to agree on the CL call last week.
Oh, you mean in the engine API or in the actual?
In the engine API. In the
Right.
block, they're in the requests.
Okay. So you mean a unified field in the block?
Yeah, in the EL block, they're in the unified field requests.
Okay, so sounds like
But Matt, this would mean that consensus block will still carry it separately.
and that's fine. Yeah. Because
Yeah, I think it's up to the CL to decide how they want the data from the EL.
and I
yeah.
think you can deprecate fields without having like an array hanging around. At least that's my understanding. Is that, and I guess we haven't. The CL hasn't really had that discussion actually on exactly whether or not we would combine them into a single field in the block or not. But yeah, I didn't know when we were talking earlier that we were talking about the CL block. I thought we were talking about the EL block when you said that they seemed to be separate. Gajinder. So I was confused. But yeah, on the CL side, we could have them be separate or together, but my understanding is that we can deprecate fields on the CL block without having to have an empty array around forever. But
So, I mean, why do we even need this then? On the CL side, I mean,
but
can
the
just
EL side, it's about the EL block, is my understanding, right?
so this PR is targeted towards EM.
Yes?
Yeah.
And the data that is coming to CL is still coming in the original engine API format, or is it coming in the opaque format?
It's in the original engine API format.
Oh, got it. So basically, for the CL, the data is still structured, and EL, basically for the matter of EL doing request route, basically now it's opaque for that.
I didn't catch the first part of that.
So basically for the CL, so so the treatment of this 7685 EIP will be that the data to CLs will still come in a structured engine API format, but now on the EL side, there is since this generic request type, so they don't really have to modify for each. They don't have to modify header and sort of put
Yes,
routes for each new request type that keeps coming in.
that's correct. With the caveat that there was never an intention to have an opaque data structure in the engine API. Like we have this with transactions, but I think it's a historical thing to avoid defining the SSZ type for every transaction. But as we add new things into the consensus specs, we just define the SSZ types for them also. So like obviously the deposit request receipt has a type, the consolidations will have a type, the 7002 withdrawals have types SSD. Like whether or not we represent them as a union in the engine API is like a question we can have later on, but they wouldn't be opaque. They would still have the JSON representation. They would be read into an SSD type on the consensus layer.
Yeah, it's just that,
Understood. So basically, that was my big confusion because I thought that even engine API will now carry opaque bytes and
I see. Yeah. No. I mean, we're just trying to reuse. I mean, it's confusing because we're reusing the 2718 transaction format, but we have defined the SSZ types, so we don't have to use the opaque bytes in the engine API.
got it. Maybe I think somewhere where we can clarify this in the EIP itself would be nice. Maybe I can do a PR and see.
Yeah, please.
yeah, and then just with regard to the engine API, we still have to deserialize JSON. And I just think if we pass them as one big array, it's not
No,
exactly.
I think in the engine API we should let it be like this one because it is very nice because you can look into the fields and you know what you are looking for. If additional type would be provided, basically that is okay.
Do you mean on the engine API if they were unified? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that on the engine API, let it be like the way it's currently coming.
Yeah, yeah.
Because,
It's
yeah.
just because we're gonna have to deserialize this, and I think it's just generally way easier to deserialize separate. But
So as this means that for 6110 7685 update that has been done to the EIP, on the CL side, no changes required, as well as on the exits.
That's currently what is anticipated. We can talk more about if the CL side wants to adopt the request format in some way, union the types into the execution payload in that way, but at the moment it's spec'd so that the CL doesn't have to do anything special, and they have total control over where the data lives within the beacon block.
Got it. So for the purpose of DevNet 0, then I think question for including 7685 is whether the ELs will have it.
As far as I know, they will. It's frozen in the DevNet 0 spec, mostly because I was under the impression that the EL teams had agreed that we could do it for the DevNet 0. So if that's not the case, we should update that. But all the specs are ready for 7685, and I think the EL teams are. We should just make sure that's the case.
There's no mention of 7685 on the note, so maybe I will just add that there, because otherwise people might assume that it's not gonna be included.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I think if the specs are already written and the EL is gonna be waiting on the CL anyway, we might as well keep it in. Cool.
Excellent.
So sounds like tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but during the EL call, some things will need to be made explicit about the target date for the DevNet. I can join in on that call, but like Lighthouse is not gonna be ready for the 29th. And neither it sounds like is Teku and neither is Prism. So I think we can probably target, I don't know, the 6th seems a bit ambitious as well, but like let's see, maybe the 10th. I don't know. I mean, not for launch, but just for getting it getting it written.
If it's not done by the 9th, most of my team will be on planes and stuff. So after the 9th, it's academic.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's just like code written, not launched, but code is ready.
Yeah, yeah. Just not the 29th for us. That's as far as I've gotten really. The 6th we can try, anytime after that we can try, but the 9th, the 29th is not gonna happen. Except for Perry's time machine, that could help.
Damn, Perry, you gotta hook me up.
Action pending. I had a quick question though. Tim maintains the EIPs included for Petra, and the one we've been discussing, 7685, hasn't been included yet. I don't even see it as considered for inclusion.
Yeah, we have to mark it down because it sounds like it's in, but it was neglected to be put on the list. Is what I
Got it. Just so that we're not doing something that then everyone's gonna say, hey, we never spoke about this. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else anyone wants to surface for the call? Take that as a no. All right. Well, I think that wraps up this call. Thanks everyone for coming. And yeah, happy implementing.
Thanks, bye.